So welcome for our presentation. So I'm Alexandre. I'm working for CartONG, project manager. And we have with us now your own introduction.
Okay. My name is Sandra Sutov. I've been with CartONG since 2007, basically since the first project started. CartONG was founded in 2006. So actually next year, we're going to have our 20 years. And hopefully we're going to celebrate that a bit, and you all, of course. And during this time, I've had changing roles. We started out with a really small team where I did lots of implementation in the field. And then at the moment, I'm a senior portfolio manager. And given that I've been around such a long time, I have the honor to be here with our guest.
Yeah.
And handing over.
Here is Mathieu. So they don't hear us so well.
Okay. Hello, I'm Mathieu Soupard. I'm the director of MSF GIS Centre. I've been in the humanitarian activity for the last 30 years, back and forth between MSF and ICRC. And I'm a former director of logistics from MSF. And in that capacity, I supported the creation of GIS initiative within MSF.
Online, we have Yvan Pointy, who is actually a logistic referent for MSF in the emergency cell. So he will be the voice of the field for us. So why are we doing this today? The session is a way for us to show you what is the GIS Centre and what journey did we take to arrive to this right now. So the goal is to share experiences and highlight the challenges that we faced to get you inside of what is GIS for MSF Ops. I will leave the floor now to Mathieu to introduce briefly what is MSF. I think you all know what is MSF, but also to have an insight on what is the GIS Centre.
Yes, thank you. Most of you are familiar with this MSF. There are perhaps a few things to highlight if you start the presentation. Among the things that you know about MSF, perhaps one that is very important to remember here, it is a medical organization. Okay, so of course, if you develop a support activity for a medical organization, it has to be medical or oriented towards health support. And that is already one parameter that you put in place when you develop a GIS capacity for an organization like this. It's also a big organization, around 69,000 employees, active in around 70 countries, including staff or involving staff in more than 160 different countries. Therefore, several cultures. And those are elements that you have to take into account while developing a support unit. You go back, please.
Yeah.
So now let's have a little focus on the GIS activity for MSF. It's
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Next. So this is per choice. We have limited the scope of GIS in support of MSF to everything which is mainly focusing on supporting decision-making, on planning, monitoring, and communicating about activities. Okay, and that is very important because this is the DNA that was, let's say, established from the very beginning, and we are still on the same track. And our first role is to enable operation or medical staff to benefit from well visualized and well organized product, but the data mostly comes from the sector that you support. And this is another challenge: who master the data, who has the ownership of the data in your organization. So another aspect which is very important is also to clarify from the very beginning what is the added value of GIS for your organization. If you are trying to promote an activity like the GIS within an organization which is not GIS Sans Frontières but Médecins Sans Frontières, you need to clarify with the operation, with your internal customer, what is the added value. And we have categorized them in 5 different categories. Contextual understanding, activity planning and piloting, activity monitoring, reporting, knowledge, and resource sharing. Those are the official added value, and it's very important because then it helps you to define your scope of it. Next. From its inception, the GIS now has 10 years of experience within MSF, and we are very proud because what was an intuition has proven right. And as of today, there is a very, very transversal application of GIS support. It goes from health, logistic, water and sanitation, security, knowledge management, and so forth, to disaster management. And this is very important because initially we thought we would mainly support, for instance, logistic or operation, but it really went super wide, and the spectrum of sectors that we are supporting is very large. And this is how you see that somewhat what was an intuition became a successful story. We have a network of GIS specialists that are distributed across many regions. The GIS remains an opt-in activity. So when MSF opens a mission in the field, it's not part of their fundamental to have GIS officer in their teams. It's opt-in, they request it. But now we have, could you go back one, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, on the map.
Yeah.
So now we have, of course, it's all the time evolving, but we have around 30 people in the field and 28 people at headquarters to support this activity. Next. Of course, we had to structure our offer because this is another aspect, is clarity towards your internal customer. So we have structured our offer around different pillars, let's say. Mapping and spatial analysis, this is the obvious one. GIS enablement. GIS enablement is the support activity or the accompaniment action that you do towards mission in the field. Whenever they request to be supported, then you go there and you help them to structure themselves, structure their data, to welcome perhaps one GIS specialist. It's a journey to be geo-enabled. GIS field, I just mentioned, we have a pool of people that we are deploying to the field. Training and communication as part of capacity building and learning and development. GeoMSF platform. GeoMSF platform is a one-stop shop website. It's a central repository of good practices of products, and there is a ticketing system for anybody in the system being able to push a request for a new product. Geodata management is super key, of course. GeoApps, those are the dynamic side of the mapping. And then we have Earth observation units, which is mainly playing around with satellite imagery and post-production. Next.
Yeah, now that we thank you, Mathieu. Now we all know, so MSF, what is CartONG, Sandra? Can you tell us more about what is CartONG and how did it go?
Oh, of course I can. All right. So as I mentioned already, we existed in 2006 and we are H2H. I think many people in the room might be familiar with the term. H2H means humanitarian to humanitarian, which means that we are supporting other humanitarian and also development organizations on everything that's linked around information management, like the full chain, if you so want, from conception, data collection, up to data management, analysis, visualization, and even dissemination if requested. and also GIS, of course. In fact, we started out with GIS first and then got more into general data management as we grew and as we went along. Maybe the element I'd like to emphasize here a bit, because maybe that's a bit lesser known, that we also are working on generic resources for the sector. We are having a resource center and a learning corner where you can find IM tools, toolboxes, not only from us, also from other organizations as well. And as part of our strategy, we have a localization angle. The reason why I'm mentioning it now is because we have also upcoming sessions on this on the HNPW. I'm using the spot now to do a bit of communication around that. And that's about real anticipatory action for and by the local communities and actors, which is tomorrow at 2 o'clock, I think. And then we have Bridging the Gap, how to prevent a two-tier humanitarian data system, which is linked to the study. We have them at our booth if you're interested in it. That's really looking beyond the numbers, balancing innovation, ethics, and impact. And I'm highlighting this because this is maybe a lesser known that we do that as well. And we do also have a volunteer base and are running marathons and other type of projects, having also volunteers in the field, if possible, as well. I think that's it for now.
Good. It's good. So I will send you the presentation. There is link on it, so you can access it easily. Also to the study, but also for the CartONG service offer and the links to the learning corner as well. So now, how did we build or how did we insert GIS services in MSF operation? First of all, I wanted you to tell us more about what did CartONG look like in 2013? How did it go? Like you mentioned some steps, but maybe quickly some key steps more maybe on the GIS point of view.
Sure, maybe on the IM point of view, because 2013 was actually one of the years where the pillar on mobile data collection in CartONG started in 2010, when we had like the first pilot to really use smartphones. To be honest, smartphones haven't been around for that long. I think most of you might not even remember, because we use them in our day-to-day lives and can't live without them anymore. But actually, it was only in 2008 when smartphones were really coming, at least the Android phones. I think the iOS was around a bit before iPhone, etc. And so in 2013 marked a bit the year where we had almost a bit more mobile data collection projects or requests than actually GIS requests even. What did come in 2013 was we started the long-term agreement with UNICEF. But guess what? The first project we had with UNICEF was also to help them support remotely a data collection effort as well. We did continue also on GIS in terms of, giving general ArcGIS trainings and develop mapping tools for non-specialists. And this was kind of upcoming also because it was also only in 2008 when Google Maps was available for phones, Android phones, to route it. And this is when people started to become really interested in kind of routing services, using localization and using data that actually shows them where they are and all these kind of things. And so there was a bit of a mainstream move to mapping. And with that, there were also more requests, how can we build tools that could be used by non-specialists to visualize things as well. So that was also upcoming in that year. And I think that comes to later, but then there was a call by Mathieu, but maybe I'll hand over to Mathieu.
Yeah. But Mathieu, to complete, can you tell us what was the GIS situation at MSF in 2013 at the time?
2013 was a turning point, so let's go back a little bit. Around 2011, 2012, of course, MSF because of its logistics, because being a plane helicopter operator, because of its supply, because of many different activities being involved in disaster management and so forth. MSF was using commercial maps everywhere. Okay, maps are super important at MSF at every level of the organization. But of course, those were commercial maps. No one was producing maps, and of course, they were incapacity to cross-cut information, proper MSF data on those commercial maps. And the first edition of maps, DIY maps, I think with a kind of a trial license from ESRI or something like this, was a 1 month license from ESRI, was a water and sanitation engineer being involved in door-to-door coverage for the fight against dengue in Cape Verde in 2012, I think something like this. And they decided to map every house and then to plan their activity. And that was the very beginning of, okay, here there is an intuition. We really need this kind of support, because that was a game changer for that mission. At that moment, there were other GIS initiatives in the MSF galaxy, not related to operation, but there were offices here and there on different continents that were involved in different GIS-related activities, but perceived as innovation or proof of concept project. Their objective was to indeed highlight the potential for an organization like MSF to be supported by GIS. And our intuition from the very beginning, and our initial vision, was that we had to go back to basics, that we had to offer a permanent service with basic product to create a basic mapping culture within the organization, to get rid and to let die those high-level proof of concept / innovation project, because they had no relationship, not related to operation. So they were meant to fail at some point, those initiatives, although they demonstrated the and this is how I gave a call to CartONG and I said, look guys, we need you first to provide a basic mapping service, permanent service mapping, that was the key word, and second, defining a strategy, helping us to define a strategy for the service and the adoption within MSF.
Yeah, here you can see how what looked like the first map center and the version 2, the one-stop shop where you could find like the production of all MSF production at that time. Yeah. Okay, thank you. How did the relation between CartONG and MSF grows from a GIS center focus? I will give you the floor, Mathieu.
Sorry, this is the timeline. Perhaps it's interesting because it gives you a different milestone, a different step. It's not super focused on your question about the relationship. The first GIS unit was created in 2013, if you look at the left side. And the infrastructure developed by CartONG at that time for MSF was the Map Center version 1. And this is the area that we call evolution phase GIS 1.0. Okay. And then there's been different development, but one turning point was the Ebola crisis in the Western Africa, because GIS was not anymore a concept or something, but we were called by Operation Medical Department, whoever were in the field, to support them because they could not deal with the magnitude of this crisis. And what made this crisis very particular, because you had the whole movement of, usually, MSF intervenes It's one operational center, perhaps 1, 2, 3, maximum 3, and already the coordination of 3 operational centers is quite a challenge. But there it was the whole movement involved in that, because it was kind of a 1/3 of a continent that we had to deal with. It involved different countries, one region. It involves plenty of sectors, various sectors, from epidemiologists, water and sanitation, logistician, medical department. And they all needed consolidated information. And no one, even the epidemiologists, they could not consolidate the information at regional level. And it was via the GIS, actually, that we were tasked to somewhat aggregate that information that the movement could not aggregate because it didn't have the data strategy and the data policy in place to do so. So that was a turning point for us. And then in 2016, the top management of MSF gave the mandate to this GIS unit to really support the entire movement, because initially it was only the voluntary operational center of MSF that were joining the program. But then in 2016, it became something more official, that it would give the mandate to the GIS unit to coordinate all GIS initiative in the movement, and then to support the whole movement. And at the eve of 2017, we realized that the utilization and adoption was exploding, was exponential. So we were not equipped. We were not equipped neither in terms of infrastructure, staffing, expertise whatsoever. So we applied to an internal investment fund within inside, and we obtained that fund, and we launched a scale-up mechanism that allow us to have a new infrastructure, new setup, new everything, to do capacity building and to change our habit. And there was this project called GeoMSF. But of course, at that time, on the daily basis, we were providing service. So we had to conduct in parallel the scale-up initiative plus the daily service provision. And then end of 2020, both the outcome of the GeoMSF project and the GIS unit was merged in a new form, which is today's form, the GIS Centre. So this is version GIS, let's say phase GIS 2.0. And now we are arriving at the end of our current strategic plan, and we are now debating the new strategic plan and potential new investment.
Thank you. So now we will dive into the challenges that we faced. And now a question for you, Sandra, about awareness and adoption. So considering CartONG experience supporting humanitarian actors, what are the current challenges regarding adoption of GIS and awareness?
I think the awareness has really grown. I mean, a lot. I mean, as I told you, I think with the widespread use of really Google Maps and so on, you know, the awareness of what you could use GIS data for really grew. When we started out, we still had to do lots of lobbying why you should be using GIS, but that slowly but surely melted away as people could see really the benefit of GIS. But these days, it's other questions like, where do you want to embed it in the organization? I mean, if you're an operational organization like MSF, where do you actually want to place this? Is this a service? Is this embedded directly into the units? Like, will you have GIS in a particular unit? You know, do you decide to put it maybe to logistics because they need it the most? Or do you have like an HQ type of support unit? How big do you want to go? What infrastructure do you need? And that is kind of really determined by the use cases that you have and where do you see yourself actually going. I mean, there are tools out there, a platform out there. I call them the Rolls Royce, you know, of GIS. But if you only have 1 or 2 people to operate them, then maybe it's useless to go for the Rolls Royce, and you're only if you so want, in a zone where you cannot drive more than 50 kilometers per hour, you know, something. So you really need to think through, where do you want to go it for? What do you need it? And that's not an easy decision to make neither. And maybe you have to start with a small pilot here and there to build the case, and at the same time also be ready to scale up. For now, the challenges for an organization like us in H2H is really moving from being the organization that does maybe the innovation and the pilot and the R&D or the proof of concept, you know, and then show, okay, this can work, to then actually scale to an organizational support service that can really timely and reliably deliver production, because it's quite different from, you know, being the proof of concept to actually going to a reliable production with processes and everything in place as well. So that's also something that can be a challenge, or is a challenge that you have to master as you go along. And I hand over to Mathieu, because I think he has a lot more even.
I mean, from MSF experience, first of all, you need to convince your internal customers, potential users, that the what is the added value of GIS for their activities, for their ability or capacity to take decisions, for instance. There is a need that the new type of support does not complicate their life. Of course, it's not magic, but you should not add workload and burden to the people you are supposed to support. It's actually easier said than done, because if they are data hosts, they still need to do their own data cleaning to be properly supported. And in that respect, the effort-benefit balance should be really positive and clearly recognized, acknowledged by the potential user. The service offering needs to be super clear and well communicated. The GIS specialists that you send to the field or are in connection with the people you are trying to support should understand the business they are trying to support, and the people and the burden and the difficulties that those different sectors do meet. And the GIS service, especially for an organization like MSF, really needs to remain agile, responsive, and sustainable. And it's also easier said than done, because remaining agile while you are trying to structure your business, it's something which is difficult, because you are doing, you have to do the two things in parallel, which is not always easy. So there are, I mean, the various things that we, let's say, secure to make that happen was a selection of tangible and relevant GIS activities or services for operational support. Don't disperse yourself, remain focused on perhaps at the beginning basic product until there is a mapping culture in your organization, and then you can get into more complex product. You have to be responsive, even sometimes proactive in a rapid changing environment or evolution linked to crisis or to needs of the organization. There is, if you are successful in your business, of course, there is a growing adoption, and you need to be up to that expansion, because you cannot, once you have put the finger in the machine, you cannot stop this adoption and this positive momentum. So you have to structure yourself to be able to follow. L&D capacity is super important. The capacity to the capacity to build capacity, to communicate correctly, to send clear message, and to embark people. For instance, what we did is that we created a kind of a community of believers that were our first evangelists, and then they were our first supporters in the organization, make the message go through. Effort in communication, and overall GIS needs to be perceived as a trustworthy partner in the organization. One example is the confidentiality of data. You cannot afford a confidentiality or data breach because what you have gained, the credit that you have gained for 10 years can be ruined in 5 minutes in one wrong move. This is super important if you are a trustworthy internal partner.
Thank you. So now we will dive into the technical field constraint. There is a question for you, Sandra, on how did you overcome obstacles usually on this kind of tools?
Yeah. The biggest challenge is, of course, the connectivity in the field. And then if you have tools that rely on stable internet connection or high bandwidth connection, then you're kind of doomed. What we did in terms of data collection quite often is actually that we had little mini servers like on Raspberry Pis that you have on a small USB stick, and then you kind of plug that in to the computer and you build your server on that computer where you plug it in, and you set up a local network and you sync basically without internet into that server. That is maybe an example on how we try to get around it, or we try to design web-based tools for lower bandwidths, also mapping tools if possible, so that they can also build up and can be shown in lower bandwidth areas. But those are maybe 2 examples from our side, and on the MSF side there's even more.
I mentioned, I think, extensively the challenge of data management. If you are trying to develop an activity which is data-based in an organization that doesn't have a data policy, then you have to create your own ecosystem. But this has, of course, very soon a limit. But that was one element. And of course, pure satellite communication with the field, was another system, because there are very few off-the-shelf applications which allow pure offline. So those were 2 other examples of technical challenges.
And now we will really focus on, we'll present you some example of the role of GIS in MSF Ops. And I will leave the floor to Yvan, which is online with us.
Can you hear me?
From the moon?
Yeah.
From the moon, wait.
Where is it?
Yeah.
Can you hear me better now?
Cannot. Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yvan, est-ce que tu nous entends maintenant? Est-ce que tu peux en parler?
Très bien, merci. Vous m'entendez? Ouais, vous m'entendez?
Oui, c'est parfait.
Ok, super. So hi everyone, I just need to very quickly introduce myself because we're going to jump in purely operations, and you need to know where I come from and why I take those examples. So I'm the logistic referent for the emergency cell in MSF Switzerland, and the emergency cell is basically deployed on emergencies where MSF is not already present. The use of the GIS that we have is extremely key to our operation for very specific purposes. That first of all, either none of the data is pre-existing, it's a new crisis, and we have nothing base ourselves on. Either it's an extremely dynamic context and we need to create the data before we can put them on paper. So we will go through a few steps where GIS was deployed, and it will come to some very contemporary crises where I will explain to you what we have created now and how we work hand in hand with the GIS Centre in order to improve our service. So since 2013, vaccination campaigns, basically during vaccination campaigns, it's extremely important for us to plan the routes that will be used to deliver the vaccines. As you probably, most of you know, or not, most of the vaccines that we use are under cold chain and needs to be injected to the different recipients between 2 and 8 degrees. For that, it's extremely important that we have enough passive cold chain capacity and that we know how far we deliver our vaccines, how long do we need to keep them cold for, and how many we need to bring with us. So since 2013, it's the first introduction of the GIS services into emergency support activities in order to improve to its maximum the management of cold chain and vaccinations. If you can go to number 2, please. Then obviously, as mentioned previously by Mathieu, the Ebola crisis in 2014, it's all different operational centers working together. But it was also a lot of urban settings in countries where there was, as most of you know, there was never an Ebola outbreak in the past. We did not know the towns or countries where we were intervening, and there was the whole contact tracing strategy that was key in order. Yes?
I think, sorry, the sound is really terrible. It's really difficult to hear you.
Is it the same for people online, or it's just?
Yeah, I don't know. For people online, is the sound really difficult as well, or because if not, if it's difficult, I will just keep on going. It's also difficult on Yvan.
So it's on his side.
So I will take the lead. I'm really sorry for this.
No problem.
Okay. Then yeah, I will keep on going with explanation. So as I said, Ebola crisis is the first point where the use of GIS exploded. So it was I think a game changer for the GIS Centre, the turning point, because it was for MSF, multi-actors, multi-sectors, multi-country, and the use of GIS was really increasing a lot. One example, one anecdote to give you about how quickly it was adopted. The first GIS deployment was sent to the field, and at the arrival, the mission was asking the cell, why did the GIS specialist came instead of a medical personnel or a medical doctor? 1 week later, they were asking for a second one. So it was really that quick. Then the Syrian crisis was the first example of support of GIS remotely. It was fully remote the GIS Centre was supporting the operation from a remote way. Then for the first time in 2021, GIS activity piloting and monitoring tool was used for the indoor residual spraying in Burundi. So it was helping the ops in the spraying of individual residual to fight the, let's say, I forgot
Malaria.
The malaria, yeah, the spread of malaria.
But perhaps I could say.
Yeah.
I mean, this one was another turning point because GIS so far, and it still was a support activity. And MSF could very much conduct its operation without GIS, of course, with less information, less tools, but it, as usual, carry on its activity. In the residual spraying, GIS became a piloting tool, which means that every evening they would use GIS to target different houses for the next day. So actually GIS became the pilot of that activity. And that was also in terms of adoption and in terms of use, another turning.
Okay. Then on the Ukrainian war, it was also a turning point for GIS because it was used mainly at the beginning for security context follow-up and management. And so MSF took the decision not to go closer to, I think it was 40 kilometers from the fighting line. And every day, this was monitoring through the head of the GIS. Then we had a new, let's say, client for the GIS use. Is the use of security context Java, who is now beginning to be like really embedded in everyday ops of MSF. It's how to monitor security context to increase the safety of MSF ops. So here it's really an interesting product because it's an intersection products and use. So all sections of MSF are working together to with this tool to monitor the security context. Yeah, there are also examples of GIS application for specific sectors such as Watson, health. We have health context GWAP as well in the fields. Health site accessibility. We have also like monitoring GWAP or use for the mapping products. Supply, of course. Voilà, such a good example. And last but not least, we have also a dedicated unit in the GIS Centre called Earth Observation, developing their own solution through the aid of satellite image. Also for mapping and growth analysis, camp mapping and growth analysis, flood or landslide analysis, such products. Yeah, and then Mathieu, how does the GIS Centre can adapt to emergencies? Can you tell us more about this?
Well, very quickly. I mean, we have MSF is an emergency organization. Of course, we have to be up to that DNA, of course. So we have a structure or emergency approach, whether it's reactive or proactive. As you can see, we are able to, as soon as we are involved in a crisis management, we are able to provide standardized support product, reference map, standard map kit. Of course, harvesting is the very, very first stage. And then we send someone to the field, and then it provides direct support to operation, need assessment. And of course, there is the whole aspect of data management and collecting local data and so forth. And then, so those first two stages are quite standard. And then there is the phase where you start to tailor your support to the specific needs. Is it more a relief operation with more supply and logistic, or is it more a medical because there is an epidemic outbreak and so forth? Is it a war context where security is super important, access to the fisheries is another challenge and so forth? So it's being tailored both by the GIS specialists in the field and headquarters that support the GIS specialists in the field. And there's a distribution of role between headquarters and field staff to be agile and to be able to work around the globe. And of course, we also have a solid infrastructure in geomatics that runs, of course, round the clock. We do have a pool of specialists. We have equipment. I mean, there is a series of measures that we took to make us agile and reactive.
Yeah. It's nice to see that also the GIS specialists are now completely embedded into ops at different level. It can be, of course, on the field with a short-term deployment, but now there is also people being recruited at the long-term under national contracts. GIS specialists are also embedded into ops through a flying contract or people being recruited under ESL. So therefore, they are really sent as soon as there is an emergency, as you said, they can be sent quite quick way to support.
Yeah, which, by the way, was a sign of adoption, because when the emergency desk or cell wants their own GIS in their team, it means that they would not conceive anymore to be deployed and to do an exploration or whatsoever without their GIS support. So that was another good sign. Perhaps also to mention that we have a privileged access to satellite imagery, with even the possibility to task satellites for image acquisition. So those are all those are elements that we have put in place, like a data sharing partnership. We try to anticipate for areas, disaster-prone areas, things like that. I think we have to speed up a bit now.
Yeah, we will speed up to leave the floor for questions. But just to say that now the GIS is really used as a tool for analysis, decision making, piloting, communication, and advocacy. So everything that matters for MSF ops. Yeah. So here you have some example of key usage or key products of GIS. But I said it before: the monitoring of health context, monitoring of security context. We have refugee camp mapping and monitoring, health access. Here we have an interesting product, which is the country kit, or also called standard map kit. It's a kit of static maps. So 6 static maps that is done at mission level and frequently update and sent to so all the mission can have their own standard map kit, and as soon as there is an emergency in a country where the standard map kit does not exist, the goal is really to support the ops through this kind of ready to use product. Another example of product is an online mapping platform, which is available for all MSF staff through the Geo MSF platform. It allows them to make like simple mapping online project. Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to say is also like all MSF products, public MSF productions are pushed to Relief Web and published to Relief Web to support the humanitarian and the development actors. So it's a way to give back to the community. Maybe we can wrap up with the lesson learned and the next step of the GIS Center, but maybe a good focus on what are the lesson learned for you on this journey. Who wants to start? Sarah?
Yeah. The main lesson I learned from is, of course, get support from an H2H. In operational NGO, you want to embed GIS. No, but seriously, I mean, it's good to get support, no matter from who. When you start out and you want to embed GIS more, I mean, ask around, ask your organizations that have done it, ask McKinsey, for instance, and try and get targeted help for those aspects that you cannot internalize at first, that you want to try out at first, and then reassess as you go along on what type you need to support and what aspects make sense to internalize.
yeah, lesson learned. I mean, we were very lucky to have the means at MSF to secure resources to go through a demonstration phase for a few years, where you still don't have convinced internal customer or user, but yet you still have the resource to sign a contract with CartONG and then to deliver a service without having demonstrated yet or convinced about the added value. So that is key, because otherwise your initiative will die before it can even prove its existence. For that, you have to focus the service offering on tangible operation benefits, possibly starting from basic, very agile, and responsive offering, leaving the complex offering for later. Once the mapping culture has been established in the organization, you, of course, as I mentioned, you have to clarify your offering and communicate it correctly. Not forcing the adoption top-down, but more creating a community of believers. And then the prescriptive GIS support becomes viral. You have a medical coordinator that has done a vaccination campaign with the support of GIS. Next time that person goes to another mission, doesn't want to start any vaccination without GIS. And this is how things get viral and the pump is prime at that time. So then once you start being demand-driven mode, this is where you know that you have had a good intuition and you have won the case. And this is the moment where you start proposing more complex, more dynamic product, more in-depth analysis and so forth. Be prepared to scale up quickly, because if what you are doing has a success, you want to keep the momentum going, and you don't want to those people to expect for an investment campaign and an investment program like the MSF, and to pause and to have to frustrate all expectation for 1 or 2 years. You have to conduct things in parallel, so there is a continuity of service and still this agility and responsibility. And then secure the resource to be a permanent service, permanent support shared service, without bumps on the road, because otherwise your customer will be disappointed and then you lose them and doesn't get around. And then have a good H2H partner when you need them.
Thank you. We have question. Now we can open the floor for question if you have. We have half an hour left. Yeah, and we have some online here. The first question is: many organizations do not invest in GIS capability to the same extent as MSF, perhaps because they cannot understand the tangible benefits. Do you have any documentation of the benefits you've seen from having the GIS unit?
We surely have, but I cannot put my finger on one particular. But
okay. And the second part of the question is: and do you actively make those case studies available to advocate for those organizations to invest in this capability?
The thing is, MSF is so big, is that we got a bit self-centric. We forgot to document all the. This is actually the first time we are sharing our journey with the external world. And we are quite ashamed of that, but still. So we have plenty of material, but it was not meant to be shared outside, so therefore not edited properly or something like this. And on our platform, showmsf.org, there are public documents that can be retrieved from the resource center, I think.
Yeah, I put the link in the story map, so you can also access this GeoMSF platform. There is an interesting question about how does MSF work with the Ministry of Health, and specifically on the data side. Do you have like collaboration when you do your project? How do you work on the data side?
Very interesting. Very interesting question, because not all health program, MSF health program, are integrated in the MOH local system, but more and more. And anyway, the first reflex of a GIS officer is to go towards the MOH. And very often it ends up in a kind of a quid pro quo where they gave us access to the data and we give them access to our service. And even sometimes we organize training session for their staff to be better GIS officer, better data manager, or perhaps they don't fully master the software. We give them kind of capacity building lessons and things like this. So there's kind of a quid pro quo, but it's super important, and this is something we would like to encourage in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, does anyone have a question?
Hi. I have several questions. The easiest way to present myself is to say that I'm the new Jan Robois, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. My name's Sven.
That's a good introduction. Yeah.
Yeah.
My name's Sven, and I'm the GIS lead for ICRC as of a year and a half ago. I have one very straightforward question, maybe two more complicated. The first one is you mentioned you have privileged access to satellite imagery. Can you share who the provider is? So we work with Micron. Due to recent changes in US administration, our access is suspended for the time being. Then we have Planet, but we task it and we pay for it. So we're just a regular customer. There's no discount or anything like that. So I'm wondering if you have other solutions, other providers, and just curious about that, if you're able to comment.
Unfortunately, I'm not able.
Fine.
But we do have a privileged European civilian provider.
All right, thank you. Maybe I'll follow up on that in the future. Thanks a lot.
For the reason that you mentioned.
Thank you. I don't want to hijack if anybody else has.
No, go ahead.
Another very general question is, so we use ArcGIS a lot, very classic stack, FME, ArcGIS, and it's very versatile, meaning you can today with these apps create anything you want. You can create a website, just with an ArcGIS hub and put pictures, text, whatever, videos, which is not really GIS driven, but you have this possibility. And what we're struggling with now is the huge success of GIS. Not the success, I say huge possibilities of GIS and ICRC, and everybody wants us, but we have very limited resources, unfortunately. And we can't do digital favors for everybody. So we're struggling with that. Everybody wants us, not necessarily for geo-related matters, just because we are digitally enabled. And so how do you manage that in MSF? I guess clarity on what GIS is in this type of presentation, clearly explaining what you do and don't do, but do you have the same challenges? How do you manage that?
Very interesting question, because it's looping back to you. Actually, when we felt the need to scale up, we created kind of a support committee being supported by ICRC. So it was your team supporting us in thinking right how we are going to scale up. So it was Jan and there were other people around that spent time in orienting us. And one thing that they said is that you need to secure a clear perimeter around GIS, because if you are in a data management immature organization, you find yourself doing data management for everyone else, and not for GIS only. And that was a very wise element that we really took. So we have drawn a scope boundary around us very, very tight. And now the organization, regardless of GIS, the organization is getting more and more mature in data management. So we are indeed converging more. Now, on the other aspect, which are the potential of existing tools like S3 or whatever. So we have a clear, at least we are trying to make a clear distinction between what we have a portfolio of standard products. Those are the ones that we have in our catalog that we propose to our internal customer. And those are the ones that we maintain, for which we provide documentation, for which we train our officer and even train the user. Everything which is outside, it's non-standard. It's not discarded per se, but it doesn't mean, but it means that we are not obliged to secure a resource to maintain it. Okay, because of course we have a given budget and we have not a bigger budget. Then you have the community of field specialists. Super geeky person, they can create any custom geo app overnight. What do you do with that? For a time being, we've been fighting against it because it was creating noise and creating a mess. Now we have completely reversed course. We are leaving them space to gig their solution at field level, even implement it, even share those little tricks or solution among them. But there is a clear distinction. Those are not standard products. So there is no institutional commitment to maintain them whatsoever. Then to create a bridge between the two, we have a GIS on offer evolution process, which every month we have, is it every month, every 3 weeks? No?
Yeah, every month.
Yeah, every month we have this GIS on evolution meeting where those locally or field created initiatives are being presented to their peers. And this is where there is an appraisal for absorbing them into the standard portfolio. And this is how we manage the tension between the galaxy of possibility versus what we are committing to maintain.
Thanks.
I hope it answered this part of your question.
Maybe to complete, but Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you put a lot of effort also to have processes and to really have well-documented product, meaning that now to reproduce some product, it's easier and you are saving a lot of time. I hope that it means much more efficiency as well, and to deliver more and more products that are standardized products now. And so it's really on a CartONG point of view, it is a great collaboration because it's also give us exigence, or MSF is pushing also to have really standardized procedures and a rigorous way to work. So it is very efficient and you can help as much as possible, depending on the needs, obviously, but with a very structured approach. And thanks to, I think, the vision also that the MSF team and the GIS Centre had at the very first place. But I think it helped also.
Thank you. What you describe is true. Indeed, we have spent lots of energy and time in structuring ourselves, putting procedure in place, structure whatsoever. And it was not always understood by our own staff because they thought that we would become a bureaucracy. But this word sounds bizarre nowadays. And actually, it has proven the opposite. The more we have put in place infrastructure, processes, common knowledge, knowledge sharing, and so forth, the more it becomes a backbone for our GIS staff, for them to be autonomous, therefore reactive and agile and so forth, because they can rely on something solid.
There is any other question? Online or?
Online, there are questions, but maybe, yeah.
No, it's more regarding the user perspective. Who are the users, like daily users? And what is there like a specific profile within MSF, or anyone can access the data and use the data as they want?
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting question. So we have two sides. So as Mathieu said, there is a ticketing system. So for someone to ask for a product, they just have to open a ticket, depending on in which operational center is working, or is he or she. The ticket will go through a circuit and to a position which is called the GIS advisor. The GIS advisor is one person that is the sponsor of the GIS at the headquarter level of the operational center. So there is six operational centers, so 6 GIS advisors. And the GIS advisor will go through the demand and allow it to the and display it to the dedicated unit. So if there is a need to create a static map, then the static and the GeoApp team will get the ticket and will create the ticket. When the map is done, we will push the map on the GeoMSF platform, and then the field can access it. So every field can access the map. And so if the one OC, let's say MSF Belgium is asking for a product, and then MSF Holland is working the same mission, they can also access the same product, and it benefits from everyone. And there is a data side also. So as Mathieu also said, there is a structured data, geodata, which is so there is a master database, and this is shared with all MSF staff, MSF specialists in the field or at HQ or at regional level, to so they can access data and use it to map or their work. Yeah.
Yeah, on the user side also, previously, and this is a bit of internal mechanism, but you will see that it's interesting. Previously, the user was charged, financially charged. So a MSF Spain mission in Nigeria would be invoiced for the service that we provided. Okay, so it was an interesting way of doing accounting to make sure that actually the financial burden goes to the project instead of the overall organization. But we get rid of that system, first because it was heavy, and second because it was preventing adoption. Now we have a lump sum, and there is pure equity in whoever wants a product, and we have some elements to filter the requests based on pertinence, based on impact versus benefit. There are certain elements that help this GIS advisor to decide whether or not, and 99.9% of the requests are dealt with without discussion.
And just the last word on this, so everyone can do a ticket. So it can be like a medical profile, it can be a logistician, it can be someone from the supply team, it can be an immunologist. Everyone can do a ticket and can answer for so it can be a GIS specialist or non-GIS specialist. And non-GIS specialists are trained, or we open their floor of possibilities through some through training, and they can therefore see the possibility of it. We have another question online. So, are you planning to include machine learning to use EO or GIS to anticipate, predict geo-related matters, flood, landslide, climate change?
Yeah. So the big subject of AI. For us, what is at stake for the moment is to support our GIS specialists in doing analysis in the more efficient way. And therefore, in that process, AI is valuable too, especially on Earth observation, population count, dwelling count, and so forth. So AI is more contributing in the process of delivering a product than being made available to the end user. So that is one thing. But perhaps I missed the question. So
no, I think it was this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So machine learning and AI will be more and more there, but it's a way for us to semi or completely automate some element in the process to be more efficient. Like if you have large area, satellite imagery area, and then you have to count dwellings, things like this, or qualify buildings, building extraction, and so forth. Of course, AI is great support.
Thank you. And there is another question from the banking example. To what extent can you make specific infrastructure information to other platforms via API? What would be the requirement to do so? Well, to be honest, I'm not sure I understand the question myself. So, do you understand the question?
But maybe the person wants to.
Or yeah.
I understand it's how basically if we generate data, how do we share those data with a wider community?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know, MSF is part of the Missing Map Consortium. So via the Missing Map Consortium, first we map-a-thons to digitalize satellite imagery, and whichever data goes automatically feeding the OSM database. And we do the same. The problem that we have is that the GIS department or GIS center does not qualify the sensitivity of data. It is the data owner, medical department or operation department. And if they say it is confidential or it is sensitive, we do not share the data. As soon as they say it's public, non-sensitive, then we do share the data.
And then there is the last question of Martin. Is it possible to get access to the catalog of standard information layer for the master from someone that is outside? No, it's
The catalog of product or?
No, the catalog of product, it's open,
Okay.
but I think the question is more on the layer, the master database.
From outside?
From outside MSF.
No.
So no.
No, because I mean, GIS Centre has the master data for MSF presence, MSF infrastructure, and so on.
Lots of, yeah.
But inside those, they can have secondary data. I mean, since some dictator decided to bomb our medical facilities, a simple facility became a sensitive thing.
Other question in the Well, thank you so much.